CNN just exposed Melania Trump in a brand new bombshell. Just wait until you see what they revealed. And Melania Trump's response is even worse. This one is quite a doozy. In the final weeks of the 2024 presidential campaign, Melania Trump has finally decided to show up. Strangely, Melania Trump hasn't joined her husband Donald at any campaign events. The only thing we saw her at was the RNC, where she came out briefly to join Donald on stage. That's unlike the 2016 RNC, where she delivered a speech. So what is Melania up to? Well, it appears milking the Trump base for every last dollar they've got. Melania has been pushing her overpriced gaudy jewelry on her fan base, and she has been putting out videos promoting a memoir that comes out on October 8th. Some of these videos have been quite controversial, including spreading conspiracy theories about the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump.
The attempt to end my husband's life was a horrible, distressing experience. Now, the silence around it feels heavy. I can't help but wonder, why didn't law enforcement officials arrest the shooter before the speech? There is definitely more to this story, and we need to uncover the truth.
I agree, Melania. We deserve answers on why a registered Republican was so angry at Donald Trump that he decided to try to take his life. Perhaps Donald Trump should relax on his violent, extreme rhetoric because he seems to be getting his own base too riled up. Melania also did an interview recently with Fox News where they lobbed up softball questions and tried to portray her as some sort of working mom to relate to other women in America. Get ready to roll your eyes.
And I looked at that picture and I said, this is a working mom's life. We can all relate to this. Everything's chaotic, everything's hectic, but it's so much fun. And everyone tells us to enjoy those moments because they're fleeting and your kids grow up and it just flies by. When you look at that picture, what was happening in that moment?
When I see it, that was the time that I did QVC collection, my jewelry.
Which
and
sold out in 45 minutes.
It did, yes, was very successful. So I was doing all at the same time, working, playing with Baron. He has his own time with, his car and his books, and we talking. So I think it's very important that we show our children that we are working too, to give them an example how life is, that they see us, that we are productive, that we have an ideas, that ideas comes to life. And that's how I was showing to Baron.
Wow, seeing Melania in her opulent office, working in some New York high-rise with little Baron playing in a fake Mercedes-Benz toy car that's probably worth more than most people's real car is so relatable. She's just like us. And an interview is exactly what is now causing controversy for Melania Trump. CNN released a bombshell report that shows Melania Trump asked for $250,000 for an interview. This article by CNN says that it is highly unusual for someone to be paid to be interviewed, especially a political candidate or their spouse, because that's considered a package team. And boy, does CNN have the receipts. Check this out. Says nearly 2 months ago, CNN reached out to Melania Trump's book publisher to request an interview with the former First Lady ahead of her upcoming memoir. After several exchanges about a possible interview, the publisher sent an unusual demand last week. An interview would cost $250,000. In an email to CNN, Skyhorse Publishing sent a document labeled Confidentiality and Non-Disclosure Agreement that laid out strict terms for an interview and use of material from the book titled Melania, due to publish on October 8th. On top of that, the agreement stipulated that CNN shall pay a licensing fee of $250,000. And CNN did not sign the agreement. $250,000 to sit down with Melania Trump of all people? Really? But this is where things get even more ridiculous. Just wait until you hear the response from Melania's team when they were pressed on this. Days later, after a separate CNN journalist asked Skyhorse Publishing about the exorbitant interview fee, the publisher said it had sent the payment demand by mistake. Neither Melania nor anyone from her team knew anything about the NDA, and the document that was sent reflected an internal miscommunication. Tony Lyons, the president and publisher of Skyhorse, told CNN in a statement, "Had CNN signed an NDA in the normal course of business, we would have approached Melania's team to discuss specifics of the interview." So it sounds like one of two things. Either it's total amateur hour at this publishing company and they made a horrific mistake in sending over this request for $250,000, which I doubt is the case, or Melania got caught trying to ask for $250,000 and had to blame it on some poor staffer over at the publishing company, saying they made a mistake without her permission. You decide which you think is the most likely scenario. I highly doubt some publishing company would make such a major mistake like that without passing it by Melania's team and being on the same page. And just to give you an idea of how bad of a move this was by Melania, listen to this. Paying a public figure for an interview, especially the spouse of a political candidate, is highly frowned upon in most newsrooms, which tend to have strict guidelines against such a practice. It is also highly unusual for the request to come from a representative purportedly acting on behalf of the spouse of a presidential candidate and a former first lady, especially with such a large price tag. And maybe you find yourself wondering, what's the big deal to get paid for an interview? Well, they break it down here in the article. Payment incentivizes the subject to alter what they're saying to make it more valuable to the organization, to exaggerate or sensationalize, said Kelly McBride, Senior Vice President and Chair of the Craig Newmark Center for Ethics and Leadership at the Poynter Institute. Your goal when you interview people is to bring their perspective in so you can get closer to the truth. And if they have some sort of incentive to distort that, you are failing your audience. McBride said news organizations will often get around paying for an interview by instead paying to license material like photos or videos. In 2008, ABC News paid Casey Anthony $200,000 for the exclusive use of family photographs and videos of her daughter, whose body was later discovered. The payments were not disclosed until a court filing related to Anthony's case in 2010. But of course, Melania Trump and the people advising her are fully aware of this. Melania has been in the spotlight for decades at this point, so for her to ask for $250,000 to be interviewed and then to claim that it was just a mistake with providing no evidence why that mistake was made or how is ridiculous. The Trumps are just cashing in on the final weeks of their presidential campaign. And it is amazing that Melania Trump has not been by Donald Trump's side at any campaign events, and yet his base doesn't even question that. The Republican Party, supposedly the party of family values, has no concerns about Melania Trump being nowhere near Donald Trump while he's campaigning to be president of the United States. Incredible! It seems to me like Melania Trump is just trying to squeeze every last dollar she can while the Trumps are still in the spotlight during this presidential campaign. Because once Donald Trump loses, the money train is gonna stop.